All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the show. So, you may have heard the news. Starting September 1, we're joining Barstool Sports. That's right. Your two hosts with the most. You can still find us everywhere as the Rap Drugs Pod. But starting the end of 2020, we have a multi-year deal to be exclusively named Caller Daddy. You heard it right, folks. Suit Man is hooking us up. Starting 2021 will be Dave Portnoy's Barstool Sports' Caller Daddy 2. We passed the auditions, Todd.
What are you talking about? I never heard about any of this. What the
We're going to get paid. Well, I'm going to get paid. Come on.
I'm kidding.
Let's do it.
Well, I need to get paid too, Jay. Come on.
No. It's not how it goes anymore, Todd. If you don't know it, you got to get exclusive deals, even if that means stabbing your co-host in the back and losing your show. Don't worry. If you don't know, me and Todd are brothers. So none of that shit's going to happen here.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, let's get into the history of psychedelic substances. Yeah. And by no means a comprehensive history, but just some interesting notes we read up on and thought the crowd might want to hear.
Yeah, some general facts.
Oh yeah. But yeah, Todd did a lot of the deep diving, so I'll let you begin.
You want me to start off, I guess, with we'll just talk about how kind of in the ancient world people use drugs in a wide variety of ways. I mean, recreational use was probably happening, but not written or recorded, talked about a lot. Yeah. But a lot of religious use is widely known across the world with all kinds of different drugs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Amanita Muscaria, very common.
But what's that one?
Amanita Muscaria, the red and white mushroom, that goes under fir trees or needle vane trees.
Yeah, I didn't know the name.
Yeah. Reindeer like to eat it. It's like a Christmas-based one, Santa Claus-based one, kind of. Shiny like a gift. But yeah, Paul Stamets and Joe Rogan like to talk about it. So that's the only reason I know about it. And yeah, a lot of this stuff is like purely speculation, like we're saying. Like when we go history, this stuff is just like told from someone to another if it's not written down somewhere.
Yeah, we're by no means historians. We're just trying to report information we've read.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll share some articles with you too there, but
yeah, we'll have sources down below for all the stuff we're going to talk about here.
Yeah. But yeah, other than like starting in like 400,000s of BCs with whatever people could find wherever they were at, like I thought some of the interesting stuff you came across was like the opium for, I guess, the early history where there was some big money behind it or potentially government things.
True.
Or what's close to government, kings doing commissions with their boats to go spread it around and gather it up and what have you.
Yeah, well, the Opium Trade goes back to the Mughal Empire, like the 1500s or something like that. Because opium's
the trade part that we know of.
Yeah, the trade part that we know of, and the Mughal had a rich recreational opium use culture that's highly recorded of. They're based out of northern India, which is where a lot of opium comes from and where the main trade originates.
Still to this day,
yeah. To this day, India is the number one source of legal opium. The number one source of illegal opium is Afghanistan.
Which was Afghanistan part of India before, or was that just Pakistan? Or is that neither?
Just Pakistan.
Okay. Yeah.
Just Pakistan.
So like just past what used to be India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because opium's grown all across that region, like even Iran also. The opium, or the recent Afghanistan opium trade blew up because Iran made it illegal recently.
True.
But
So
anyways,
like opium is to like the Himalayan mountains what cannabis is to the Rocky Mountains. Like just like
pretty
there's the
much.
best opium in the world. Spread out from there, there's still fucking insane amounts of it. But
Oh yeah,
but that's
yeah,
where you
and it's
go
just
for the
always been like
top
that.
quality products. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
Like your
much. Pretty
Colorados
much.
and BCs are your Afghanistans and Northern Indias. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this was this was happening a lot during like, or the opium was blowing up a lot during the exploration age when the Europeans were going across the world and looking at all these different places. And
And writing everything down at this point. Ink, they were finally putting ink to paper
yeah,
on
for
those
sure.
boats.
and and so a lot of the colonizers in India, like Portugal and Dutch and the British at first, and then also the French and the Americans even got in on the opium trade later.
Yeah.
They would all get their opium, I believe, mostly from India. And throughout the 1800s, the British would slowly monopolize the entire thing through the East Indian Company, which was a British chartered company that had its own military force and dealt
Nuts.
with most of the trade between China and Britain.
So just for 1 second there, military
Yeah, for
force
sure.
being tied in with the drugs
Yeah,
already. And that
already.
is that military force like the British government, or is that like just a king,
Well,
the monarch still?
Well, see,
Or a
the
different
British government had their own naval thing, but like the
True.
East Indian Company was like a company that also had its separate military to itself. Their
True. So
own.
kind of like I guess what would be a pre-CIA kind of operative, or what
Sorta,
we
in a
might
way.
not even know about, like a Jeffrey Epstein kind of operative. Maybe he
I
could be
mean,
tied to
definitely.
other intelligence, but like
Well,
some who knows if it's really tied to something or if it's of nothing,
I mean,
and just a
like,
man with lots of money for military weapons. Because back in
yeah,
the day, what would that be? Muskets and boats and
pretty much. Yeah,
horses. Like
yeah, exactly.
it's not like you're
Mostly
buying
boats and
tanks
muskets and
in
cannons.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're not buying tanks in Nigeria or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And
yeah,
and you also get into like later, eventually they do have to go underground. They're doing a lot of illegal things. Like I, we're just going to talk about like the things they do pertaining to opium, but I'm pretty sure the East Indian Company is really known for a lot of illegal, like pushing around small business kind of things with their military might, kind of thing. But
nice.
but yeah, once they started flooding China full of opium, I don't know if you know more about the economics of this, but from what I read, China had really no need for uh, bringing in imports from other countries, but was really big into exports. So the East Indian Company was bringing all these goods back from China and just bringing boatloads of silver to China. And the only thing that they could sell there was opium. So they were trying to push opium in China, all the European countries, but mostly Britain. And the opium crisis started happening. And China eventually had to illegalize. First, they only made it illegal to ship it into the country.
Yeah.
And that law didn't really do anything.
So you could
All that
still
did,
have it and like smoke it and like
cultivate it, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
swap pounds in China with a police officer.
Yeah. At first,
Yeah.
I think it's like the early 1800s, something like that. That's when or maybe 1700s, where they started having these problems. And then once they made it illegal, though, they had to set up a whole system to get these drugs into the country, because the Chinese government was in the north. So the whole southern region of the country became this like drug area. And this is where you see like the first drug dealers, illegal drug dealers. These guys are literally pushing opium on the streets in southern France or southern China.
Nice.
And they're getting supplied by
drugs
the
for
British.
sale.
Yeah.
Instead
I
of
mean,
like a wet market, it's a drug market. Yeah.
yeah. It was crazy. Yeah, and they were just setting up these opium dens,
Yeah.
just
Like
place
your
where you'd hang out
Amsterdam
and
cafes.
trip.
Like your
Yeah,
Amsterdam
pretty much.
cafes. Yeah. Nice. So crazy. But yeah, after that, they like it goes from kind of a plant-based, I don't know if you want to call it medicine, more like a drug, uh,
Yeah.
a
Uh,
plant-based sedative
yeah,
to
they make it more
to a
potent and addictive.
synthetic to a synthetic.
Yeah,
Yeah. But
yeah. So that's sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but yeah, even then it kind of gets worldwide out, like after things pick up in China, like you're saying.
Yeah, opium spread like everywhere. Like it wasn't really popular in Europe during the Middle Ages, but once the Renaissance started picking up, opium started becoming more popular. The pushback didn't really come until was only in China until later in the 1800s, like 1850, when people started really realizing opium was a problem, and that was when morphine was out, like you're saying,
Yeah, they
and
created
they started
morphine, just like every
and started
single,
having other problems.
just like every single opiate-based drug. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
opium's a problem. Now we have morphine. Opium's now
yeah,
illegal. Oh, morphine's a problem. Don't worry, we have heroin. Oh no,
yeah. Then they come
heroin's
out
a
with
problem.
heroin,
It's illegal.
and they literally said with heroin, they were like, it's twice as strong, but half as addictive. And
And
then,
that's been everything since. Like, so I don't know
yeah,
why
they just
morphine
keep saying it, keep saying
never
it.
got illegal, but then Oxycontin came out and it was like, oh,
Yeah,
it's non-addictive but stronger than heroin and morphine, and then it was super addictive. So
and then also
instead,
methadone. I don't know the story fully with methadone, but during like the 1950s, it was considered the same thing. It was the next step from heroin, and then a lot of people were like, "This is
oh
even more
wow,
addictive."
oh
Yeah,
wow, and I wonder if
and then now
I've
it's
never
used
heard
as
of
a.
people using it for pain management though, like
I
those
don't.
other things.
That was the
But
original intention of its invention, but I don't know if it was
it
successful
doesn't
doing that.
even manage your pain. It's just the addictive parts. Yeah.
Yeah,
They're like, we got rid of the addictive part. It's like, oh no,
yeah,
we actually got rid of the pain management part. That's
yeah,
funny. That's funny. But yeah, then after that, like I don't know if Oxycontin and fentanyl came out at the same time in different places, but then there's fentanyl, and as they make that
yeah.
illegal, like
Just
the
stronger and
carfentanyls
stronger.
come out, and then if they make that illegal, we'll just add a different compound or
And
that compound,
I
and
mean,
mostly being exported from China to
as
elsewhere
far as I'm
nowadays.
concerned,
But what was going
like,
on?
sorry, what do you say? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just saying that kind of has exponentially gone up recently, where in China they're creating extra compounds on these phenols where it's now legal to make it there, even if it's illegal somewhere else. So they can make it, export it, or
Yeah,
make the raw materials and export it to other places, which is much more
yeah.
common. But
That's a crazy thing that we should do a whole new segment on, because that's a whole what China's doing over there these days. With they're
yeah,
making whole new compounds and trying to stretch the rules as far as they can.
yeah. Well,
But
work within the rules, because they make
yeah,
their own
exactly.
rules. They make their own rules. They subsidize these companies. But yeah, I shouldn't get into it exactly like you're saying. I should let you get back into the opium to morphine 1900s, unless you want to like go back to like Greek
Well, I
culture and
think
that kind of thing. What do
no,
you
no.
think?
I was thinking we should talk about what the Spaniards were doing with coca leaves, because that kind of ties in with
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happened after heroin came out.
Before we get into the psychedelic drugs, exactly. Let's keep talking about the plant medicine.
Yeah, because this is all what was going on these days is what led up to what made drugs illegal in the first place.
Yeah, and I just can't believe how many compounds were plant based. Like, at least to
Oh
start.
yeah,
Like,
well yeah,
and it
that was the
seemed,
whole focus,
yeah,
because like that's all we had to base it on was these plants. Well, let's just make these plants stronger,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So the Spaniards, I don't know if you the what they were doing. Like most people know that South America's full of coca leaves,
Hmm.
and the Spaniards colonized South America. And when they went there, one of the things they did is they started persecuting a lot of people for their hallucinogenic use, because it was seen as like a heretical thing. Like usually you were a pagan or something, you were just a local native religion, and they wanted you to be Catholic, so they didn't want you doing these drugs because they associated them with your religion. But one thing they didn't make illegal was coca leaves, because they noted that coca leaves, the people who took them were easier to control, they said, and worked harder. And they were trying to get all these people to mine these silver and gold mines.
Interesting.
Right. So the only reason, though, coca leaves never became exported as much as opium is due to the fact that coca leaves deteriorate to the point where they don't have as much effectiveness, or at least, I don't know if transportation's gotten better, probably.
Yeah.
But back in those days, they weren't able to ship enough back, I guess. I don't know the entire details, but from the article I read and the source I'll post, they were able to just ship a large enough amount back. I guess they just cultivated a huge pile of it, loaded this ship up, and sometime in like the 1850s, a German scientist was able to isolate cocaine. And eventually, after they had come out with morphine and heroin, they decided liquid cocaine was going to be the new thing, because morphine, heroin, and opiates are used for painkillers, but they were trying to look for also anesthesiac. So at the time, they were using chloroform for a long time, which causes all kinds of heart issues. So a lot of people were being put under an anesthesiac is for surgery, if you didn't know that. And so a lot of people were being put under and were dying from these heart problems. And they found that the numbness effect from cocaine may be able to replace chloroform as a surgery anesthesia. And they also thought, we could give people cocaine and it'll be able to replace their heroin and their morphine addictions. And they also thought it'd be great for breastfeeding mothers because it would help with the numbness on their nipples because they get sore, I guess.
It will help them
just were
smoke
having
more
all kinds of
cigarettes.
crazy. Yeah.
It will help them smoke more cigarettes with their whiskey.
Yeah.
But it'll make their soreness numb. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, one funny thing I read, I guess, in the original Sherlock Holmes stories, Sherlock Holmes used to take liquid cocaine injections in his spare time to deal with the boredom between cases.
Nice.
So
Just
at that time, just like morphine and heroin and cocaine, they were all liquid injections that you could get, or maybe they were also commonly found in cough syrups. So people were getting them all kinds of weird and crazy ways.
Yeah. Sigmund Freud was a frequenter of the cocaine for his headaches, supposedly. That was a medicine of the time.
Yeah, I was reading, he was super into it, I guess. And I believe it was Freud. He was like trying to give it all his friends, and he was convinced that there was no OD level, that you couldn't OD on cocaine, and he ended up killing one of his friends.
Partied too hard.
Too much.
Partied way too hard, eh? That's good.
So, I don't actually know how the transition happened. I tried really hard, but I couldn't figure it out. So if someone else, knows and could send us some information, that'd be super interesting. But
email or call or comment below.
Yeah. It seems in 1905, people started snorting it. I don't know why. I don't know if for some reason it just was easier then. But 1905, people started snorting it on a regular basis. And then it was 1910 when all these cases started showing up with people having nasal issues from snorting all this cocaine.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's the cocaine and the opiate story a little bit. We could dive into it different times, the different legal parts of how they looked at it at the time and how they ended up making it illegal, because after cocaine was eventually found to also be dangerous, that's when all of these things were looked at as needed to be banned worldwide by the United States and Britain.
Yeah, exactly. It was the British Empire countries that that kind of did it. But like you're saying, in China and in places individually, laws popped up. So
Yeah,
it gets pretty technical pretty quickly once
it
that
gets
stuff starts getting recorded in the 1900s. Yeah. Or
super
even in the
complicated.
1800s even.
Yeah, it
With the
1800s up
opium wars
until
and everything is
yeah.
nuts.
I don't know if we really got into that. Maybe the
No,
Opium Wars.
no.
I think I skipped over that easily.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, but that's a lot. I think
yeah,
maybe
that's a whole.
maybe we should save that to go in with more of the
Yeah,
China and Middle East stuff and more
yeah, 'cause
geography specific and drug specific
true.
histories.
We'll just explain. I'll just mention, that the Opium Wars were like there were just the wars for Britain to enforce selling opium in China, and we'll get into the
Yeah.
details of how that happened and what ended up taking place afterwards.
Yeah. Pretty nuts stuff though.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy story.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's so involved. Also with all the different players.
Yeah, and it's so interesting back then because China is really the first country to put in these drug laws, these anti-drug laws, and then the Western countries are all, let's force them to buy these products that they don't want or that they do want, but the government doesn't want us to sell them
Yeah,
because we need them economically for our goods, right? That's their
exactly.
reasoning. And then the shift in the 1900s is all this, or in the 1800s is all of a sudden, we're having problems in our country now. We're having opium problems and morphine problems and heroin problems in our country. So let's force everybody in the entire world to conform to our idea now.
Exactly.
Like,
I don't think people realize how good we really have it. Like water is not a thing that used to be drinkable. Like
yeah.
200 years ago. Your great grandparents probably couldn't drink water. Like they probably had to drink beer, like in
True.
order to survive. Like you either drank, like that's why cow's milk is a drink, even because it was something that you could get and drink that was pure. Like like otherwise, like I don't know what worked with the water, but it always had some terrible bacterium in it, and
yeah.
they didn't even know to boil it. Like,
Is that right? I actually didn't know that.
I'm pretty certain. Or like you wouldn't have access to fire a lot of places. So yeah, they used to have
on a
to
regular
drink.
basis.
They used to have to drink alcohol and wine and that stuff, and that's why
I see what you're
that
saying.
stuff's always been legal and never ever been questioned. Because
back then,
that's more essential than water to some people. Like
their
they used to
beer and
need
wine back then was legit just like almost water. Like it was just it was so much weaker,
Exactly. Well, because they had to drink it as water, so they also couldn't get drunk on it. It's like a rattler. And there was no alcohol taxes and no health checks. Like this was full of your probiotics. It was like yogurt. Like like I think for 100, like water was hard to get by. Warm water even harder. Like people shared baths for days. Like you wouldn't bath for a couple months. Like up until like before plumbing was invented. Like water wasn't water. I don't even know if water was safe when plumbing was invented. Like that's a whole nother episode.
Well, no, I read about that because I am a plumber, but
nice.
The Romans like invented plumbing, and they used to use lead. It was originally mostly just for bathing. They'd set up these bathing pools, and lead is poisonous, and all plumbing was done with lead. So a lot of people were getting lead poisoning when plumbing was first done.
Wow, that's awesome. And not really awesome. That's terrible and insane.
It's
but that's exactly it. Like
that's a good example of
why you can't trust water. Why you can't trust water. How good we have it, and like the fact that alcohol was essential and
wasn't essential.
Maybe should have been
longest period of time.
Yeah, maybe should have started getting questioned around that point, but these other drugs did instead. But
You want to hear something funny now that you
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Uh, the first anti-drug lobbyists in Britain were mostly Quakers, but they were trying to shut down what they called the Anglo-Indian opium trade, and which is what we're explaining. And
Yeah.
they when they finally were able to get Britain to set up a conference to try and first implement shutting this down, their findings was that there was no interest in India to make it illegal there. They had religious practices for it, and the Indian government's response, like their local government that was ruled by Britain, their response was maybe British people should start considering doing more opium and drinking less.
That's that. Good response. Good response.
Yeah, because they had no opium crisis in India where it was from, and they had a lot of experience with it and knew how to use it safely, I guess. But
Opium
in
is
Britain was probably starting to have large alcoholism problems due to the fact that distillation was getting so good.
yeah, exactly like you said. Things getting stronger, and
Yeah,
so you had your hard liquors and things that
like that's really the real
spirits where they
problem
started. Yeah. Oh
was
yeah.
that we made things way stronger than they were ever supposed to or ever could have been on their
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. And that seems to be where a lot of the problems lie in anything like we were saying too with the opium, like you got down here well, what I read, what you shared with me, I don't know how to say his friggin' name, Philippus Aerolis what's it, Paracelsus, is that how do you say it?
It sounds right. I probably would have said it wrong too. I
Yeah,
don't know,
he's
man.
like a
We
physician
butchered it.
yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
If I got it right, it was by chance, but physician and botanist from the 1500s in Austria. He created the first like opium based medicine or one of the ones that was written down and branded as laudanum. Like, so
Oh yeah.
pretty big
Yeah.
guy, and he also mixed it with alcohol too, or that laudanum led into like people mixing it often with
Yeah.
alcohol.
Well,
But
that was like super common. Like almost every drug people used to just mix randomly with just all the different drugs like back in the day.
yeah,
I was
exactly.
reading
And that's what kills you. That's why you're not supposed to do that.
that's super unsafe.
But like they just did little amounts of it. Like it was
Yeah.
reasonable.
One guy wrote this medieval or Renaissance doctor physician. He wrote everything on the earth is poison. You got
Yeah,
to just take the right amount to get turned into a remedy.
that's exactly it. This same guy,
Yeah.
Paracelsus, he said all substances
Yeah.
are
Was it him?
poisons.
Nice.
There
Yeah.
is none that is
He's
not a
hilarious.
poison. The right dose differentiates a poison and a remedy. So
Yeah.
he's might not be right with psychedelics, because from what I've
Yeah.
read,
Not in
like
all cases,
I do think,
but
and
it
some
was.
people might agree, if you take a higher dose, you might end up
I
more
mean,
likely with an issue.
I'm
But it's
totally
not going to
sure
cure.
you
It's
could
not
do
going to
it.
cure it though. It's not a remedy at a low dose for
Yeah.
people that have that issue.
Right.
But it is therapeutical for people that have other issues like PTSD and crap
Yeah.
that really sucks.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah,
Crap
yeah.
that
What
really
were
sucks.
you saying? Did you want to get into the old school practices, or did you have something else to
Nah.
say about
Really, I don't think I
Paracelsus?
was leading into anything else. I
True.
think that was mostly all I had to say. His quote. I just wanted to get that in there. That was a sick quote.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
liked it.
Yeah. Definitely. You hit it on the head. The idea, just slightly off on the wording.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of the Romans and their lead pipes, like,
Oh
although
yeah.
there's lots and lots and lots of petroglyphs that people believe are like mushroom based or like psychedelic based, like Egyptian stuff, and even more ancient tribe in Australia for the mushrooms and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Roman and Greeks were writing down at this point, and like Germanic and different kind of tribes were getting documentation of regular religious practice with psychedelics.
Yeah. Like shrooms were widely distributed across Europe and Asia and all across Americas. The shroom
And
seems to be like the
throughout
most widely distributed drug. Really.
Mother Nature with like dolphins eating pufferfish and like caribou and reindeer eating the Amanita Muscaria, and then like people drinking their piss to get psychedelic in Siberia.
That's gross.
There's lots of there's lots of crazy shit out there, but
there
and
is.
the jaguars eating the vines, and they trip out. I forget where that's at. And then the craziest thing to me is like the mix of the ayahuasca. Like you've got to take the one thing and mix it with the other thing, and then you've got sorry I'm saying thing. I'm not trying to like keep this censored. Like I just have no friggin' clue what they're called.
Yeah. The compounds.
Drawing a blank here. but yeah, the Greece people used to write about like the illusion practices and mysteries and their religious cult stuff and some crazy things that went down then, like where it first seemed to be getting heavily like psychedelics, like they were probably always influenced by shamans and stuff, but this kind of seemed to be like religious tied with state kind of practice.
I'm pretty sure the Oracle of Delphi, which is like a super famous fortune teller for Greece, like she even talked to Alexander the Great at one point and gave him some advice. I can't remember what it was and the story and all, but she used to have her oracles. She would go to a cave and sit in this cave, and she'd come out and she'd spill her visions that she'd seen in the cave. The cave was filled with some sort of gas. Can't recall the kind of gas, but she was pretty much just going in there and just getting super fucked up. It might have been like methane or something.
True.
Just getting like
I thought maybe it was
high.
like I thought maybe it was like a like, you know, an isolation tank. Like it's just deep in the cave, hopping into a puddle. And
no, there was like a gas leak in there. Like they went in there and tested the cave. And
sick.
she was just getting super high. Yeah, so like in all kinds of ways, like they've been influenced by drugs. And yeah, it's tied into the state. Like the Oracle of Delphi was an extremely powerful thing. Like
that's so great.
And the old I don't know what they were making back in the day. What were they, like psilocybin wines that they were making?
Yeah, well, it was people don't know at all.
Yeah.
But it's like assumed it's either some sort of fungi based, so psilocybe based, or some sort of ergot grain rot based.
Should be like LSD.
Exactly. So somewhere in that, but if it was ergot, it would have to be on a smaller scale than like that whole bread issue back in France when everyone was like thinking that there was witches, because like they knew what they were doing, and then all of a sudden people thought witches existed. Like kind of doesn't, there's a gap there if it was ergot in a certain way or another. Like I don't know, I'm not saying that it couldn't be the exact same thing. I'm just saying like the information
we don't know.
Did not connect. But and we do know that people have done mushrooms forever. So yeah, whatever they did was an hallucinogen type of psychedelic, or euphoric based, which is who knows, but apparently that was commonly done, not just in their, I forget what the ritual's called, where they do it like once a year or once a harvest or lifetime or
I don't know. You don't have it up
decade there? Yeah, no, I do have it here. It just doesn't have a name for it. But but yeah, they've got goddesses named after her, like Persephone, the goddess whose mother's Demeter is associated with a grain, and that Demeter is connected to the underworld and a symbolic rebirth experience of the illusion mystery. So that rebirth experience just makes me think like, yes, I think they somehow knew grain created this psychedelic experience that you cannot control. And the underworld connection may be a bad trips that are very short, but that rebirth experience, the illusion mysteries, the whole religious piece is like the other 7.5 hours of your trip.
Yeah.
Not the part where you're ordering from a random fast food place, staring someone in the eyes who's been sober for 8 hours and is just trying to get out to party in his parents' basement. But yeah, so yeah, it was a known thing, and then it was so important to the religious state government type thing that so when someone stole a drink of it and shared it with his friends in his apartments, they came down and cracked in on him,
Oh yeah,
arrested him.
yeah. It was. Yeah, yeah. He was just chilling in his apartment. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
So
like they were policing drugs then for their own use, like not even
yeah,
like maybe the same reason they do it today, like, hey, there's only so much to go around, man.
yeah. True.
Or like to get the
They're
prices
just
up,
hoarding it. The
up,
prices.
because yeah,
Yeah, forever they seem to have always have reasons to just suppress this for their personal use for whatever they want to do,
yeah,
and not spread it around, spread the love, spread
yeah,
the drugs.
yeah. Well, yeah, if you can show me like a metadata that says X drugs are bad, like I'll agree with it. Just get me the research.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's all I need is some research.
yeah. Most of that research points to alcohol being the worst.
Yeah, exactly. The complete opposite of what they want. The
Yeah.
alcohol and cigarettes, yeah. Exactly. But yeah, other than Greek culture, like there's also some recordings of like psilocybins being shipped around,
Yeah,
like on ship manifestos as part of the bill of lading.
yeah. Between Crimea and Venice. There's also old stories I've heard about. I'm pretty sure they're real stories. The old berserker stories of the Nordic cultures of Scandinavia. They were
Yeah,
these guys. They would eat mushrooms and they would just like go into a rage and
yeah,
fucking just beat the crap out of people. And because they were just tripping so hard, I don't know if they were taking a special kind that made you aggravated or something, but they called them berserkers. They just fucking were animals.
yeah. Oh yeah, and yeah, people don't know about like aboriginals of different cultures, like
All
Native
across,
Americans,
yeah,
or even in Australia too, where they think there may have been practice of psilocybin and of cannabis use, and even
yeah,
like ancient Greek, cannabis is what they coined as a term, and they used to do big hot boxes,
yeah.
sauna sessions at like they. I think Joe Rogan would get along well in the Greek culture.
You think so?
Oh yeah, with the whole like hallucinogenic regular occurrence and the cannabis sauna sessions, like
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think
No,
I don't know, I think a lot of people would. It's like simplistic, where if you like democracy representation, it's good, but
yeah,
at the same
and
time
you're
it's
like a
like,
guy
yeah, exactly, it's got the same like you can
and
only
own land.
yeah,
It's fucking
if you're one of us two, only
yeah,
like rich.
yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
It's it's yeah, like the high society culture. I mean, a lot of people would enjoy those cultures.
Oh
They
yeah,
just
but it's just like New York City and Los Angeles. Like you're either enjoying the very top, or you're like, there's some people that get to enjoy being around it, and then
yeah,
there's a lot of people that are like working to serve those other people.
yeah, man.
Unfortunately, and it's okay to agree with that if because it's human nature by what it seems to be.
Yeah.
It's also okay to disagree with it because I don't know, a lot of nature is different. Like nature, non-human nature.
Yeah. Like sometimes like nature is scary.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. Humans aren't the only scary creatures. But yeah, if we could produce honey and pollinate flowers like bees though, like I think there'd be a need to have a different type of culture.
Yeah.
Like life is so easy as a human.
Yeah.
You take all of these risks and sacrifices, and people are scared of psychedelic drugs, but they're not scared to drive their car.
I know. One of the
It's
number one
crazy.
killers.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is.
It's just unbelievable, but it isn't at the same time. It's
Yeah.
what we accept as norms, like the alcohol.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and the religious practices too, and the religious people controlling the wine and the tidings and what have you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we spoke about everywhere it seems like other than the U.S.
The US,
and
eh?
not too much about Germany either, which is where I think a lot of the
A lot of the scientists
U.S.
who
kind of
invented these
science,
drugs.
yeah, the
Yeah.
research started there, like the
Yeah.
psychedelic substance-based research. It seemed
Well, yeah.
that was
Even
commonly recorded
early,
research. Yeah,
yeah, even early, like the 1800s, they were all German scientists. It seemed like they were coming up with all these drugs.
yeah,
But
yeah. But yeah, putting mescaline and peyote in people too,
yeah.
and
Well, yeah, that's what you
recording
see
it.
later in World War II. World War
Yeah,
II, they start, yeah,
yeah.
trying to load up people with mescaline. So I guess you want to just get into the what we call the early MK Ultra trials.
Yeah,
So
before you do, I just want to say, like, no disrespect to any Aboriginals that like take the peyote or any other psychedelic substances and know that it's good because of what word has been passed down or word has been written down. Like, we know that someone's done the research before it
yeah,
had to be done,
yeah,
and these guys took a different approach on it, a capitalist kind of approach. So that's why I just wanted to precursor it with that, because we live in a capitalist society. So we're just looking at it
okay,
from that lens. We don't have the same perspective as the Aboriginals. Unfortunately,
yeah, for
we
sure.
can't
The
look
like
at it that way. As much as we want
spiritual
to,
connection and the yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not a
yeah.
shaman. I'm
I mean, hopefully
unfortunately,
one day, if we
yeah.
make it big on the podcast world, we'll definitely be using that money to go do some trips, meet some people.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly. Help gain their perspective or lens some more. Yeah. Like,
Oh,
we'll never actually know what it's like to be in
oh,
their
easily.
shoes. But
But
maybe they can shed light on it.
yeah, true.
Yeah, but
Uh,
yeah, exactly. We looking at it from what we know and the science and
yeah,
money.
this is what we're gonna talk about. What happened? Yeah, the government involved, how they secretly dealt with these things. So yeah,
Yeah.
what starts going on in the 1900s, early 1900s, is the United States. I believe it's President Woodrow Wilson, maybe, or something. I don't know. Whoever it is at the time, he decides he's gonna side with China, who's been trying to fight for a while to make opium illegal and stuff. And then there's the anti-drug people in Britain who are trying to make it illegal in Britain. And finally, the United States jumps on board. And
Yeah, around 1895. It,
1895, that's when they start doing it.
that's when the Royal Commission on Opium is published. So that's when they
Okay.
kind of like start to investigate it.
Yeah.
Prohibition, like you were saying, that was when the British were speaking against it. And
Yeah.
then they kind of like completely switched the flip 15 years later when the United States said, let's do this. And then 1911, the first opium conference is held.
Okay.
So that's,
Right.
it's kind of crazy how
How it suddenly flips, how
yeah.
suddenly it happens.
And yeah,
It is.
the UK Pharmacy Act in 1906 amended opium
Uh,
and all its preparations into Schedule 1. So
yeah.
so 10 years earlier they're saying like you can do opium, don't drink, and then like what? So that's kind of what happened in that time.
That time period. And then, so at
And
this
Bayer
time
started
though,
the production of heroin also.
I,
Can't forget that. Yeah.
yeah, and I want to point out, at this time, I don't know, I can't recall exactly how cannabis became illegal, but at
That
this
was
time,
much later. That was like
yeah,
1930s or
61. Well,
different times in different places.
see, this is what I'm trying to
Because
get
hemp
at. So
became illegal in some
worldwide,
areas.
they weren't trying to make it cannabis illegal. What they were trying to do was focus just on worldwide. They wanted amphetamines that just came out, which is like meth, and
Yeah.
Adderall and things like that. Those are amphetamines, and I
Well,
think MDMA is too.
yeah, from 1860, like you said, like after they made cocaine, they started researching it, and then like the next thing that was created was amphetamines. I
Right.
forget where that
So
was, and then so Germany was always working towards that kind of thing.
and getting
Research
better
based,
medical research. Yeah.
exactly. Research based substances.
Yeah. And so they were just focusing on making these things illegal: cocaine, opiates, amphetamines, and
Because
they
Germany made cocaine and amphetamine. They weren't. They
exactly.
didn't. The other places were making it illegal because Germany was such a superpower.
You think so? I wonder
I
if
don't
that's the
know. That
case.
could have been. It could have been.
I mean, maybe we should look into that more. If anyone else knows,
Yeah.
it's another thing. We'd love to hear about.
Yeah, we'd love to know more because it's kind of strange. Germany created cocaine in the 1860s, or no, before 1860 in the 1850s. Germany created
Yeah, maybe they were making it all.
amphetamine at the end of the 1880s. So
That might explain that sudden shift.
yeah, and then uh, around the 1900s, they also create a dethylmalinone, which gets sold as Veronal, a popular poison, and what people use for speedballs. Start
Oh, is that right?
speedballing with it, seems like. Well, somebody died from cocaine use in Britain, a
Yeah.
celebrity lady, or much ado lady.
Much ado.
The government was saying she OD'd on cocaine, but it was like an autopsy showed veronal poisoning.
Okay.
So either it was speedballing, like doing both together so you can do more,
Or they lied.
or there wasn't cocaine overdose involved, or maybe even large amounts of cocaine. Like maybe it was just too much Veronal and a little bit of cocaine, or no cocaine.
Yeah.
And they lied to push an agenda against the German government. Because at that point, like I don't know, like the Greco-Roman Empire kind of became the English Empire, or blended,
Right.
in one way or another. Whereas the German Axis kind of Russian thing was different.
Yeah.
Germanic, and that, like the rest of the world, so there's so much more differences, and even between those things there's a bunch of differences. I'm being very facetious, but it did seem like Cold War then was Britain, Germany. Like you guys
definitely,
you guys
100%.
create cocaine, amphetamine, we're making it illegal.
Yeah.
But sorry, to get back into like the 1910s, opium's getting cracked down. They're starting to create these different, like you said, international organizations.
Yeah, the United
and then
States
around
is
the end
pushing,
of the 1910s.
Yeah, they're pushing everyone. They're having these conferences in Shanghai and in Netherlands or something, and they eventually they're successful, and they get everyone on board. And there is some controversy in the United States. From what I understand, in the United States, the debate was not whether they should make these drugs illegal at the time. It was the debate was
the Constitution.
Should we force the states to make them illegal? And the United States reasoning that ended up working and convincing everyone was the federal government supersedes the states in this case due to the fact that they are making international treaties with other countries and they have to uphold to these treaties.
Yeah,
so it was pretty much
something to do with order and international order, and for the leading the entire society forward.
And I feel like
sweeping thing. Yeah,
it's super similar, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, to the Paris Act. I think it was called the Paris Act back in the day. When they finally signed it.
Treaty of Versailles.
Oh, is that it?
Or,
Isn't that
so
World War
it wasn't Paris.
It was part of that.
It was part of it. Article 295, because it was originally, like you said, brought up at the Hague Convention.
Well,
and that was pre-World War, 1913.
That seems to be the thing too. Is like there was so much pushback. Like there was so much pushback against not doing this. Like when they were having these conferences, they were like, no. It was just like Britain, the United States, and only like certain segments of these governments were like, let's do this.
It was anti-Germany, anti-research, or
probably, definitely.
Yeah, non-science,
then
religious-based, government-based societies.
And then they only actually get this pushed through in World War One. Like
Yeah.
Britain puts all these controversial laws in when they put in what they call DORA or something like that. It's super controversial act where they can push laws through without parliament. And that's how they push these early drug laws.
It's like original martial law, basically.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, like in 1913, for example, New York City, they did a study where they gave mescaline to people with schizophrenia.
Yes.
Or no, they gave mescaline to people to see if it was like schizophrenia.
Wait, were these guys
and
also
to
German?
People with schizophrenia. No, these were two guys. Germany might have been doing studies too already.
Okay.
Much before this.
Yeah,
mescaline.
We don't know.
I think there might have been one written down even somewhere. But I don't know off the top of my head.
Right.
But in Texas, there was a mescaline study already being done in journals.
There was studies being done a lot of the places.
Yeah, but this is the first time they're like doing a study tied to schizophrenia. So
so go ahead.
In US. So Nar and Maloney did a study with 23 people, hoping to get some insight on the psychotic part of schizophrenia. It didn't. They recorded all the participants running commentaries, and none of them were the same. And then in later studies, so they found out it was wrong later because people with schizophrenia could easily tell the difference between hallucinations they always had and what the heck was going on with the drug. So it's nothing like it. But that was like kind of the first mental health based research study that we came across in what we were looking about.
True.
There was other ones that were more symptom based, ailment based, illness based.
Yeah.
They were looking for, oh, is peyote a new amphetamine? Like that was the one thing. Like, oh, we'll use this to put on patients.
Yeah.
Like, what? Imagine if people gave you LSD and then you went into surgery.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the DORA happens in the US. The Harrison Act happens. Yeah, and then the World War I happens. Nowhere near World War II yet. And then the Treaty of Versailles happens, and now it's US, Britain made it illegal before the war. They won the war. It's illegal everywhere.
Yeah.
Even
worldwide.
Even though Asia and Africa didn't agree to it.
Yeah, fuck them. They have to do it
or
too.
South America, yeah.
We'll invade your ass.
Yeah, exactly. We got bigger militaries, boats and muskets, basically.
Bigger guns. We just invaded the whole fucking world. How about that?
Exactly. But yeah, so that's pretty crazy. And then in Germany, it's the use, like the pace of trials picks up because they get mescaline synthesized.
Right. Yeah, they synthesize mescaline, which comes from peyote. And this is when things get messed up. This is what we call the pre-MK Ultra trials, the early testing.
So it's created at Spath University of Vienna, but then Merck, the German company Merck, which still exists today, which may or may not be something that's owned by some sort of well-to-do organization or individual.
Yeah,
and whether that organization is a trust fund,
German family.
Yeah. Trust fund, family, or who knows? Maybe it's an intelligence fund.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Like I question everything at this point after that whole Epstein stuff.
Oh, I know Epstein. What we're hearing with MK Ultra. What's going on in Russia? I mean, the connections that you hear about between crime organizations and the Mossad and Russian secret intelligence, and it's just crazy stuff that's going on now. It's like, how long has all this stuff been going on?
Yeah,
I mean,
how much they use tech and how far these things are pushed by like innovation is pushed by military is insane.
Yeah.
Once you peel back the layers on that, it's wild.
Yeah. You really start to look at the world in a whole new way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And to think these places used to use religion instead of militaries to control people.
Yeah. Well, that was for the longest time.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. That's a callback. We kind of are closing the loop there.
Yeah. Yeah. True say. So
but yeah, the pace of trials pick up in Germany with Merck owning synthetic mescaline.
So is this pre-World War II?
This is post World War One, definitely a couple
Okay.
decades before World War II.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, Dora's going on though, hard in Britain.
Right.
Let me see here. There's
Yeah.
just so much going on with the morphine and heroin acts and all these different things. The Rolstein Committee, and then 1928, Britain makes possession of cannabis illegal.
1928.
Yeah.
See, that's early.
It becomes a part of the Dangerous Drug Act. And then I think, I want to say that U.S. did it around 1937.
Yeah.
Because they did it around World War II to prevent people from doing hemp anymore, to save like cotton industry in certain areas or some shit like that.
Right.
Some weird lobbyist thing that is always controlling the U.S. government.
Yeah. Joe Rogan says it was a guy who he owned like a bunch of lumber or florists or something, and he also owned a newspaper.
Mills. Pulp and paper mills. That's true.
Yeah.
Just as likely. But yeah, so then around the 1930s, Germany and other places start developing more synthetic, like base substances.
Right. Right.
So like
Yeah,
there's synthetic.
It blows off the charts how many start coming out.
Synthetic DMT, that's created. Synthetic psilocybin, that's created.
LSD.
LSD's created. Supposedly they Hoffman didn't know until 5 years later when he had it, but I don't want to say anything bad about Hoffman, so
yeah,
because he's dope as shit.
Yeah.
But
original OG.
Exactly. Yeah. Triple OG. Exactly. Don't forget the triple O.
Okay.
And he definitely helps you be early for 420 with the 419. You never forget to miss a 420 with that date in mind.
Yeah.
So that like double for that. And then triple OG. Like not only did he invent LSD, he's the first guy who took LSD for research. But the people funding his studies were probably CIA-based government stuff.
Yeah.
Because that LSD seems to be the prominent drug of choice in MK Ultra.
Well, at the very least, what you can say is that the CIA made fucking LSD super popular. They 100% contributed, at least, due to the fact they were just giving it to people randomly, mostly hippies, because they didn't like hippies.
Yeah, definitely. But we for sure. I'm just being an idiot because Hoffman was in Switzerland, so a neutral company, not on any sides.
Yeah, he was probably just a regular chemist guy.
Exactly.
I mean, a lot of these guys, definitely if you were a chemist, even if you were connected, you didn't know. You were just a chemist. You just wanted to make chemicals to fix this problem officially.
Yeah, exactly. Or to get people high and be like, oh, yeah,
yeah.
They just spent all this research money on getting people high.
Yeah, that too.
So that's
if
funny
you're dope like Hoffman.
Yeah, exactly. If you're a genius. So. But just as we've seen with all these other drugs, pharmaceutical companies buy the patents.
And then they become popular.
And that's what covers the cost of all the research and the reason why Sandoz exists and does research and development and then sells the product for a big profit instead of IPOing and having shareholders and being forced to rip people off and for the U.S. Economy. But luckily, Europe's got a different system with like a triple bottom line, a social aspect thing. But yeah, Sandoz, they were probably a research and development company. LSD may have stayed controlled by them. Definitely was from 38 to 1943. And maybe the CIA was just purchasing it from them because they are a neutral place to buy. Like, so, but yes, it seemed to be the drug of choice in the MK Ultra. But the MK Ultra stuff before that, like,
we'll get into
that
why
happened
it
like
became
10,
the drug
15
of choice.
years after World War II, and LSD came to be during. Like, that's the craziest thing to me.
What's that?
Like, this is what
What
the
are you saying?
world needed most. Like,
Oh
the
yeah.
world's worst war ever in history.
Yeah.
The biggest,
What
the
do we
most
get?
hate ever.
Yeah.
We get the best, like the complete opposite. Like, it's if anything proves like the yin and yang and the karma stuff, it's that kind of thing where like at the same time this terrible hate is being totally demolished. Hoffman invented LSD 5 years ago, is just realizing it's fucking the love drug.
Yeah. Well, the world's going to hell. He's busy fucking tripping hard on acid and getting ready to save the world.
Yeah, and as much as I player hate on the CIA, like they are one of the best at spreading drugs. So like pretty cool guys. Like,
yeah, that's cool. We like that. Just wish you would not do it so greedily.
Yeah, like come on, fair prices, fair trade. Like like even though that doesn't do too well for coffee, let's be honest. But
yeah.
So, anyways, getting back into the Germany and like Japanese kind of studies, like.
So, yeah, I don't know if you want to name the scientists that were behind those studies.
I'm gonna blow his name, like Kurt Plotner.
Yeah, Nazi scientist. I think he's a
huge hater. This guy we can like tear to bits because he's a pile of
fuck
shit.
him. He's a douchebag.
Exactly.
Fuck this Nazi piece of shit. I can't believe we can say that for real right now. That's cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
I forget what he did.
He used mescaline as true serum, or tried to use it as true serum.
Yeah.
So MK Ultra.
This was part of just a wider thing. Like Nazis were crazy, and they were just doing all kinds of experiments, and just anything they could think of, they would experiment and doing it on people.
Yeah, because Hitler knew how good drugs were at. Advancing you to a place where you were not a human.
Yeah, he was trying to push that in all kinds of crazy ways. Like he was trying to just give people meth and cocaine and said it was like the new wonder drug. And I don't know exactly the whole details, but yeah, I know he was experimenting all kinds.
I don't agree. Yeah,
ways.
I think he was onto something that it disconnects you from like your person and people.
Yeah, he was focusing on all the things that made you worse. You know, he was like disconnecting you from yourself and making you part of the state.
Yeah,
that was this whole thing. It's craziness.
Exactly.
But anyways, the mescaline part. This was one study. See, a bunch of the studies became interesting to the Americans after the war when they started reading about them and talking to these guys.
Well, once they had all the scientists arrested in a concentration camp,
they
probably picked and choose like whatever they wanted to do from there. And like put these guys into their own place. And maybe that's why MK Ultra didn't crop up till later, because like you're in an underground bunker for 10 years legitimizing it so that you can stay alive.
What are you saying?
Like maybe a Nazi scientist started MK Ultra, continued it underground, and then like that's why there isn't really too much about it until the 1950s.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's very true. Like we don't know what happens at this point, because all we do know is
there's clear documentation where they're testing mescaline on people for at least 20-30 years in USA and Germany.
Who's the author that broke that? That there's like one author that specifically, he wrote a book. Could you name him? He deserves credit for naming the mescaline trials and stuff.
Is that Kinzer? or Gottlieb.
No,
Journalist
it's just
Stephen Kinzer, who spent
yeah,
several years investigating it.
this guy. So
The
yeah,
chemist
he
named Sidney Gottlieb run. He was the one who run early MK Ultra stuff.
yeah, he was the American.
Yeah. He was the
Yeah.
American who kind of took it
Okay.
over
So
from the
him,
whatever they stole from German or continued from German scientists. Like
right.
maybe he was Kurt Plotner, and his
So
American name's that.
I don't know. But
I don't know either.
from what we do know is that he was doing experiments at that time in not on American soil, in Japan, in the Philippines, just wherever American troops were. And he was doing all kinds of just crazy early MK Ultra experiments. So before they decided LSD was the one they were going to go with, they were just using all the drugs, mescaline being one of them. And that was first done by the Nazis. They thought it would be good for trying to use mind control. What ended up happening though is they scrapped the whole thing because if you don't know this, peyote or mescaline usually it makes you really nauseous and you vomit before you go in to start tripping and hallucinating. And they found that people, this is legit what they said, they found that people didn't trust the person trying to manipulate them after they started throwing up. So I mean, I guess it took a couple experiments to figure that out. I mean, maybe they thought they could convince them that wasn't their fault still afterwards, but
They
that was why they
probably
scrapped
thought like,
it.
oh, maybe if we eat a questionable meal hours before,
Yeah.
they won't question it. Like that's the thing about like the recreations of these through journalism and storytelling. It's like I can't believe what they did to people.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's just it's
Unreal.
unreal. Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
It
Like
is.
you wouldn't even think about doing this to someone who asked it to be done to them.
Yeah.
So
um
crazy. But yeah.
the yeah. I don't know. It was those things are insane and inhumane and completely unsupervised at this point. So yeah, we see early on, first there's the Nazi trials, and then Sidney Gottlieb, he's doing his off American trials
Yeah.
under CIA gauze. It's all really off the books. No one has any idea what he was doing at this point, I think.
Yeah, there's
And
stuff in Japanese and Germany and
yeah,
Philippines, prisons.
he's recruiting this Nazi scientist who has been doing these experiments. And then all that gets shut down probably because, I don't know, for whatever reason. He has to go back and he can keep doing these experiments, but on American soil. And he only can really do it because the guy who's the head of the CIA at the time, like the 60s maybe or the 50s, is it the 50s? I think it's the 50s at this point, maybe.
Yeah, well, when all the documentation around this stuff is all the 50s and
started
60s.
is 50s. So yeah, by the 50s he's back in the
For
United
Gottlieb.
States.
Yeah.
And he's working for the new head of the CIA or whatever. And this guy gives him free reign to pretty much do whatever he wants on American soil. And at this point, they've ruled out mescaline. They do some of the first MDMA trials are actually CIA trials on animals, and they never ended up going on to human experiments for whatever reason. We'd have to probably look into those trials some more, but
They just
fall on
didn't document them or destroyed all those documents because it
I'm
worked.
pretty sure you can. I think you can find them.
Well, maybe those documents got destroyed because it worked.
Oh, maybe
Before you could find them.
Yeah, the MDMA
Because
one was too successful.
it says, yeah. Well, the thing was, Gottlieb wanted to create a way to seize control of people's minds, and he realized it was a two-part process. This is what Kinzer says. First, you had to blast away the existing mind. Second, you had to find a way to insert new mind into that resulting void. We didn't get too far on number 2, but we did a lot of work on number 1.
Right.
So I don't know if they did try to do a combination of drugs, but I know that MDMA is the best therapy drug for people opening up. As
very true.
At least from what I've read, compared to other drugs, you're more in your own self and just being coached with a therapy guide type person. But yeah, we didn't get too far on number 2, finding a way to insert a new mind into that resulting void.
As far as we know. You gotta put that in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. But he did a lot of work on number 1. So just like Yoda, you had to unlearn so you could learn. But they couldn't figure out how to get them to learn after they unlearned them. So maybe that's why they couldn't document it even. Like maybe it was that bad. Like imagine you erase someone's mind and now you're a baby. Now you have amnesia. Now you can't get back together for reality.
I know. The shit
so they made schizophrenics probably.
The shit they wanted to do was so crazy. I can't even imagine. We should point out that the records that do exist from like the point on from the 1950s when he's working on American soil are based on really just financial records. And then they took these financial records and questioned the CIA, and through word of mouth, that's all we know about what really happened.
Was it a Netflix movie or just a movie on Netflix where the guy jumps out the window after he gets like dosed at the cottage and dosed again in New York, and like CIA's following him around after he tells his family he thinks he was dosed? Like I'm
not sure. I've never heard about that. I know that story.
Even that one, it's like the CIA won't admit it to the family, and they might have finally admitted it to the family, and that's why it all came out.
Maybe.
But I don't know if they if they even have, or if it's all speculation too.
Well, apparently there's just endless stories of people who a lot of people are just making shit up because they want to be a part of it. They're just like, I got dosed by the CIA and they took my memories away.
Yeah, it's like it's speaking of psychedelics, it's like aliens. Like everyone wants to say they had an alien experience. So they just make it up. Some people have had them. Some people accidentally had DMT, or they didn't realize it and saw aliens. Some people probably did get some sort of alien experience, maybe from an other entity, or maybe from a government entity. But speaking of like all this research that was going on post World War II, they made like the United Nations, and then made like a kind of legal sweeping entity to, I guess, control the drug traffic trade. But they still didn't make psychedelics other than cannabis illegal till 1971. Cannabis they made globally illegal in 60s.
1961.
Yeah, but PCP was a huge thing that might have been created as early as 1923, but it didn't come to be marketed as an anesthesia again until the 50s. And then
I think it was more of a veterinarian anesthesia though.
Well, they
maybe.
They tried to use it as a surgical anesthesia. In clinical trials for humans, but then later it began to be used as a veterinarian one for animal tranquilizers. So something must have happened there.
Didn't work out. Obviously.
They had someone all naked and cut up, and that's we've got that guy in our head whenever we dip the PCP and smoke the cigarette, and that's why you go out into traffic and you fight. You fight the cars, fight the machines, because that's. Who knows? Some guy probably died from getting PCP and them doing surgery on him while he was awake. And now he haunts people that smoke PCP. but forget about the demon talk. It ended up becoming like veterinarian use only in 1967 because of the adverse post-operative psychosis, severe anxiety, and just dysphoria.
Okay.
So they discontinued it on humans in 65. But in the beginning, it was widely embraced by the medical community because there wasn't negative effects on hearts and lungs.
Yeah. Woo. Go PCP.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, the LSD scene was being heavily controlled by the CIA, the MK Ultra pushing it out, maybe through the Orange Sunshine program and different means that we'll get into all of that in some later podcasts. But PCP actually entered the street scene in San Francisco in the 60s because people probably caught on to the narcs and the LSD. So
right on.
Yeah, so it did become a street drug in the 60s. People started snorting it, smoking it, swallowing it, tripping out. And at that point, LSD was already a big thing. Psychedelic culture was a big thing. So ketamine kind of came out too around the same or a bit later, 50s. And that started getting used, same thing, as a like anesthesia. They didn't think it was suitable for humans as well, so it became an animal anesthesia.
Yeah. Special K.
Another very popular, very, very commonly used today now that the FDA's approved it for therapy. Or at least they've approved
Surprising.
clinical trials. I think they've approved it all on board for therapy.
It's pretty crazy.
It's a very commonly used one. Like celebrities like Neil Brennan, writer, creator of the Chappelle Show with Dave Chappelle. He's actually given it 5 stars. Recommends.
Is that right?
I'm almost certain he said it. Like it works.
That's
it works.
awesome.
It's just you have to do it very regularly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
lots of veterans with PTSD would probably agree with that. It works. And same kind of thing. I don't know if you've heard stories with DMT. People don't necessarily, I don't know about PTSD with it, but people say they usually meet God or meet a higher being or something inside their self. They get enlightened. So in one way or another, you kind of just accept the reality that isn't in the DMT realm. So when you get back, you're more prepared to face the adversities, whether or not that cures your addictions or PTSD. Like you can respond better to it. And that's the biggest problem with pharmaceuticals today is like, you're not responding to anything. Like you're actually shutting off receptors and feelings and potentially parts of your brain, and all these negative side effects are terrible. But microdosing studies and like even one-time use studies, like end of life studies for psilocybin is all like breaking through, like insane for how good it is for mental health. Meanwhile, for like 50 years, at least maybe 150 years for the German scientists, like they've been studying psychedelics on people's minds. But it's just so crazy to me. Like, and even still, like, who knows? Maybe some baker just dosed everybody with the ergot back in the France story. Because they, like in Italy and in Greece, it seemed they knew to one degree or another ergot created a psychedelic fungi.
Yeah.
So
they were able to make some hallucinogenic drink. It is. Yeah. It's nuts how intuitive people were even back then.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't need these substances to kind of test everybody or sway everybody's opinions or change people. They just
knew how to safely take them.
Yeah. And or not safely take them and poison
if
people.
that was the case. I mean, there are books written even back then about overcoming addiction and the best ways of dealing with these different substances. Mm-hmm. Just when opium was like the main problem and not all these other things existed.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy that like the socially acceptable thing, the only socially acceptable thing for addiction therapy is sober. Like, that's a hard, that's a harsh, unbearable, intolerable reality for some people. Even if they've done it well for months and months and months, like, I don't think there's any sober person that says it's easy ever, but I think there's people that say, by being sober and choosing to use sober from the drugs that I was addicted to you and using psychedelics in combination, I have a much easier time accepting the fact that I don't have to do those drugs or don't get to.
Right.
Yeah. They're happier with their choice, and less likely to binge when a relapse does happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like more down to earth. But even just regular people, I think there was some study that came out very recently where like one dose of psilocybin can increase brain function for up to a month after.
Right.
So like brain food even.
Yeah. Yeah. Psilocybin's been shown to increase so much brain activity. That's why it's one of the number one microdosing choices people are going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I think we've kind of killed the government state rich monarchy controlled history of drug studies and drug trafficking.
Yeah. The beginnings of drug trafficking and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I definitely would love to start with more recent historical research, like we're saying
the
MK Ultra and other CIA funded things like cocaine trafficking and those type of
this was supposed to be
things.
Just a build up and an intro into that. That was
get our feet wet, but really we want to hear from like the listeners, like what does everybody out there want to hear?
Maybe no one wants that.
Yeah, like if you've got suggestions or topics that you're like, this is super cool, I want to know what articles and what research is out there on it, because I know it exists, or maybe none of that exists and it's just a cool conspiracy theory. And who's to say theories are wrong? We got to test them. We got to take that hypothesis and see if we can prove it wrong. So comment below, emails below, phone numbers below, text or call, leave a message for us. We'll get back to you. And yeah, did you have other shit you wanted to talk about today, Todd?
No, I think that's pretty much everything. That's covered. Nice. That's fucking that was a lot of stuff, that was pretty much what I wanted to get to. All these different things that we're gonna read about more. It just introduces a lot of different topics, and I want to thank everybody for coming in and listening. It's a really great podcast. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, I had a lot of fun today, and like you said, learning about it's a lot of fun. Like learned about a lot of this stuff before in one fashion or another, but we want to go deep. So if you've got better knowledge to share, we want to hear it. And if you liked what you heard and you stuck around this long, which is crazy, you better friggin' subscribe, like it, give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast directory you listen to us on. Subscribe there, and subscribe on YouTube if you want to watch or listen to the show a week early. We'll put it up there. And then, let the audio engineers finish it up for the podcast the next week. So subscribe to the YouTube now. You can get it early. Visit the site, rapdrugs.com. We'll link you up to the merch. We got the links below for the merch. Social media, all that other stuff in the show notes below and on the website. What else do we put in the show notes? Oh, yeah, we got some affiliates below if you want to support the show. We're going to try and get a PayPal or whatever. If you're in Canada and you want to interact, transfer the email below. Donations, like support the show. Help us make the show better for you. Send us a request too, like we said.
All the money goes back into the pod.
Yeah, exactly. And then some.
Yeah. And then some.
Yeah. But yeah.
That's for sure.
You're listening to the Rap Drugs Pod with Jay and Todd.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
100%. Tuning in, turning on, and dropping out. Is that what they say?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't remember anymore. Too many bong tokes.